Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the course on medical law. This lecture will be about assisted reproductive technology regulation in India. The concepts covered in this lecture are assisted reproductive technologies, ethical aspects of ART, legislative history of ART regulation in India, the key features of the ART Act, the rights of the children who are born using assisted reproductive technologies, and then the penalties for non-compliance with the regulatory requirements under the ART legal framework. The keywords of this lecture are assisted reproductive technologies, infertility, parenthood, women, and ART clinics. In the field of reproductive medicine, assisted reproductive technologies are a rapidly developing field. It encompasses a wide spectrum of medical treatments and procedures intended to assist people and couples in overcoming obstacles related to infertility and attaining successful pregnancy. ART has become a ray of hope for those who are struggling to conceive naturally in face of rising infertility rates and shifting social circumstances. Infertility means the inability to conceive even after years of unprotected intercourse. The origin of ART techniques can be found in the later half of 20th century when innovative solutions to infertility were made possible by groundbreaking discoveries in the medical field. Since then, to increase its effectiveness, ART has undergone constant improvisation, combining state-of-the-art technologies and techniques. ART includes diverse array of procedures such as in vitro fertilization, intracytoplasmic sperm injection, gamete intrafallopian transfer, and various other forms of methods and techniques. ART treats infertility, and the treatment involves both woman's egg and a man's sperm. In order to create embryos, the procedure starts with removing the egg from the woman's body and combining them with the sperm. IVF is the most commonly used ART. ART procedures sometimes uses donor sperm, donor's egg, or previously frozen embryos in some instances. Certain procedures may also need the use of a gestational carrier or a surrogate. A surrogate is a woman who conceives using the sperm from a male partner and an egg from another female. Although ART provides opportunities for infertile couples to be blessed with parenthood, the ethical considerations of ART are multifaceted and involve complex moral dilemmas. So, as you can see, there is an intersect of various moral, ethical, and legal issues involved in the use of assisted reproductive technologies. Right to parenthood. So, after the use of ART techniques, who becomes the parent of the child? Whether it is the donor of the sperm, whether it is the surrogate mother, or the actual mother who has given birth to the child. So, right to parenthood is a critical issue with regard to the use of ART techniques. Informed consent. There are various stakeholders involved in the use of assisted reproductive techniques. There is a husband and a wife, sometimes there will also be donors. So, whether informed consent from each of these actors have been obtained before starting of the procedure. So, informed consent is another critical issue. Surrogacy. Sometimes if the woman is unable to give birth, then the use of surrogate may be required while using assisted reproductive techniques. So, surrogacy of commercial nature is completely prohibited in India, but altruistic surrogacy is permitted subject to some regulations and restrictions. So, compliance with these legal norms and also handling of ethical and moral issues is also another critical challenge in the use of assisted reproductive techniques. The rights of the child born out of the use of assisted reproductive techniques. Sometimes the parents may not be willing to take the child after its birth, and there may be other critical issues also involved. So, right of the child is another major issue with regard to the use of assisted reproductive techniques. So, the legal system has to ensure that the rights of the child who is born out of the use of assisted reproductive techniques is protected. Commodification of reproductive services. The development of technology with regard to ART has led to proliferation of clinics which provide ART services. So, this has also resulted in commodification of reproductive services. So, the law also has to deal with such scenarios. Requires ongoing dialogue among healthcare professionals, policy makers and individuals who are directly involved in the ART process. Now, let us discuss about the legislative history of the ART Act of 2021. Since the 1980s, there has been a proliferation of ART services in India. There are various clinics, hospitals and other healthcare establishments which provide ART associated services. Public health infrastructure, however, lack the fertility services and is also ill equipped to handle them. Because of this lack of legal regulation in India, most of the clinics providing ART services were not regulated. So, this led to proliferation of illegal or unethical practices with regard to ART services. The Indian Council of Medical Research (ICMR) in 2005 tried to fill this legal vacuum and issued national guidelines for accreditation, supervision and regulation of ART clinics in India. In 2009, the 228th Law Commission report recommended the enactment of legislation to facilitate the correct use of ART and legalization of surrogacy in India. In accordance with the Law Commission report, ART regulation bill was introduced in 2010. However, it was not taken forward. Again in 2015, the Department of Health Research drafted another legislation to regulate ART in India. Finally, in 2019, the ART regulation bill of 2019 was introduced and subsequently it was passed in both the houses and enacted as the Assisted Reproductive Technologies Regulation Act of 2021. Now, let us see what are the key features of the ART Act of 2021. The 2021 enactment contains 6 chapters and 46 sections. The Act defines various technical concepts and ensures clarity of complex concepts and treatments required in ART. The Act regulates the function of ART clinics and ART banks. The Act also covers important aspects of research in assisted reproduction and provides guidelines for use of human gametes and embryos for research. The 2021 legislation is thus a very comprehensive framework which deals with all techno-legal aspects related to ART. The Act has specific provision to provide for the registration of clinics which provide ART services. So, it is mandatory to register under the Act before starting of a clinic which provides ART services. The Act also has provisions which regulate research in the field of ART techniques. It also provides regulations with regard to the use of human gametes and embryos for research purpose. Section 2(1) clause A of the Act defines assisted reproductive technology. Assisted reproductive technology means all techniques that attempt to obtain a pregnancy by handling the sperm or oocyte outside the human body and transferring the gamete or the embryo into the reproductive system of a woman. Section 2(1)(b) defines Assisted Reproductive Technology Bank, which is an organization that shall be responsible for the collection of gametes, storage of gametes and embryos, and supply of gametes to assisted reproductive technology clinics and their patients. Section 2(1)(c) defines an assisted reproductive technology clinic, which means any facility that possesses the necessary infrastructure and has medical practitioners registered with the National Medical Commission to conduct procedures associated with ART. Section 2(1)(e) speaks about commissioning couple. Commissioning couple refers to a married couple facing infertility seeking services authorized by an assisted reproductive technology clinic or bank. So, the persons or the couple who are seeking the reproductive services will be called as commissioning couple under the Act. Section 2(1)(u) deals with woman. Woman refers to any woman aged 21 or above who seeks authorized service from an assisted reproductive technology clinic or a bank. So, in order to obtain services from a ART clinic, the woman should be above the age of 21 years. So, this legislation also provides for an institutional framework for regulating activities associated with ART clinics. But instead of creating or constituting a new institutional mechanism, the Act relies on the existing institutional mechanism under the Surrogacy Act for regulation of ART clinics. Surrogacy Act of 2021 we have discussed in detail in another lecture. So, the ART Regulation Act says that the National Board constituted under the Surrogacy Act of 2021 will be the national board for the purpose of this Act. Similarly, the State Board constituted under the Surrogacy Act of 2021 will be the State Board for the purpose of executing functions under the ART Act of 2021. The National Board is constituted with a chairperson, a vice chairperson and members. The ministry in charge of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare will be the ex officio chairperson of the National Board. The Secretary of the Government of India in charge with department dealing with surrogacy matters will be the ex officio vice chairperson of the National Board. There will be 3 women members who are members of Parliament and who will serve as ex officio members of the board. There will be representatives from 3 different ministries. They are the Central Government Ministry of Women and Child Development, Ministry of Law and Justice and Ministry of Home Affairs. The Director of Health Services of the Central Government will also be a member in the National Board. Then there will be expert members appointed by Central Government who are experts in medicinal and social welfare domain. At the state level, the board will be headed by a chairperson who is minister in charge of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The vice chairperson will be the secretary in charge of Department of Health and Family Welfare. The Director General of Health and Family Welfare will be a member of the board. There will be 3 women who are members of State Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council who will serve as ex officio members of the board. Then there will be 10 expert members who are appointed by the state government and who are experts in medicinal and social welfare domain. Section 5 of the Act deals with the functions of the National Board under the ART Act. The functions are to advise the central government on policy matters related to assisted reproductive technology. So, the National Board is competent to advise the central government on all policy matters related to ART techniques. They also have the responsibility to review and monitor the implementation of the Act, the rules and the regulations made thereunder, and recommend to the central government any changes required. They also shall have the responsibility to lay down a code of conduct to be observed by persons working in ART clinics and banks, and to set minimum standards of physical infrastructure, laboratory and diagnostic equipment and expert manpower to be employed by clinics and banks. The National Board shall also oversee the performance of various bodies constituted under the Act, and shall also take appropriate steps to ensure their effective performance. The National Board shall also supervise the functioning of the National Registry and shall also liaison with the state boards constituted under the Act. The National Board shall pass orders as per provisions of the Act. So, apart from advisory function, the National Board shall also have administrative and regulatory functions. The National Registry is constituted under Section 15 of the Surrogacy Act of 2021. The same National Registry will function as the National Registry under the ART Act. The National Registry is a regulatory authority called National ART Registry, which will be responsible for registering and regulating all ART clinics and banks in the country. The registry also maintains a database of all ART clinics and banks, including nature and types of services provided by them, along with qualifications and experience of their practitioners. It is also responsible for enforcing the provisions of the Act and ensuring compliance. The central government for the union territories and the state government for the state are empowered to appoint an appropriate authority for the implementation of the Act. The appropriate authority will have the function to supervise clinics and banks. Appropriate authority is also empowered to grant, suspend or cancel registration of any clinic or bank in case any violation of the provisions of the Act is identified. The appropriate authority will also undertake investigation of any breach of the provisions of the Act and take appropriate legal action. They will also recommend modifications required in the rules to the National Board and also to the State Board. The appropriate authority at the state level is appointed by the state government, whereas in union territories the appointment is made by the central government. The registration of ART clinics and banks is dealt under Section 15. Section 15 deals with registration of clinics and banks, which includes the minimum qualifications and experience required for practitioners, the facilities and equipment needed for these practitioners, maintenance of proper records and documentation. So, Section 15 and the overall regulatory framework under the 2021 legislation will ensure that all the personnels employed in ART clinics possess minimum qualifications and experience as prescribed under the law. They will also ensure that the facilities and equipments needed in the ART clinics are available and qualify the standards required under the law. The maintenance of proper records and documentations is also ensured through the registration and regulation process. The registration granted to ART clinics and banks shall be valid for a period of 5 years and may be renewed by the appropriate authority. The ART banks and clinics are required to provide professional counseling to the commissioning couple and woman regarding the implications and success of assisted reproductive techniques. They shall also inform the commissioning couple and the woman about the pros and cons of the procedure, the adverse effects, the cost involved, the risks involved, aiding them to make an informed decision. They shall also assist the commissioning couple and woman in arriving at an informed decision. The IRT clinics and banks shall also explain the rights of a child born out through the use of assisted reproductive techniques. The clinics and banks providing ART services shall maintain the confidentiality of information about the commissioning couple, woman and the donors. The ART clinic shall provide ART service only to women aged 21 to 50 and men aged 21 to 55. The age criteria for banks while obtaining semen from males or oocytes from females is the same as clinics providing ART services. The clinic shall provide certificate of procedure performed in detail to the couples or the woman. They shall also provide information related to enrollment of the commissioning couple, woman and gamete donors and the procedures being undertaken to the National Registry. The Act also specifies certain practices as prohibited practices. Supplying of sperm or oocyte by a single donor to more than one commissioning couple is prohibited under the Act. Similarly, the sale of human eggs and sperms is also a prohibited practice. Commercial surrogacy is also regulated under the Surrogacy Act of 2021. The commercial surrogacy is prohibited and is also a punishable offence in India. Similarly, determining the sex of the child is also prohibited and is also a punishable offence under various legislations in India. Rights of the child. The child born through ART has the same rights as a child born through natural means. The donor shall relinquish all parental rights over the child born from his or her gamete. The child born out of the use of ART techniques will be considered as a child which has born through natural means and will be considered as the child of the commissioning couple. The donor or the surrogate will have no right over the child. The clinic, bank or its representative shall refrain from issuing, publishing, distributing, communicating or causing to be issued, published or distributed or communicated any advertisement including on internet pertaining to facilitating sex selective assisted reproductive technology. So, sex selection and identification is a prohibited activity in India. It is also a punishable offence. So, the ART Act of 2021 specifically prohibits clinics, banks or its representative from publishing, distributing or communicating any advertisement showing that the clinic is engaged in sex selective assisted reproductive technology. Whoever contravenes this provision shall be punishable with imprisonment, which shall not be less than 5 years, but may extend to 10 years, and with fine which shall not be less than 10 lakh rupees and which may extend to 25 lakh rupees. So, as you can see, sex selection or identification is considered as a serious crime which is punishable with imprisonment and fine. Under section 33, any medical professional or a registered medical practitioner shall not cause abandonment, disown, exploit or cause to be abandoned, disowned or exploited in any form the child or children born through the ART. Similarly, selling human embryos, gametes, running an agency or racket or an organization for selling, purchasing or trading in human embryos or gametes is also prohibited. Importing or helping in importing the human embryos or human gametes is also prohibited. Exploiting the commissioning couple, woman or the gamete donor in any form is also prohibited. Transferring of human embryo into a male person or an animal or selling of any human embryo or gamete for the purpose of research or use by any intermediaries is also prohibited. So, under section 33, medical practitioners, especially the registered medical practitioners or any other person who is involved in providing of ART techniques will have the responsibility to follow the conditions in a stringent manner. Abandoning, disowning a child which is born out of the use of ART is prohibited. Similarly, selling of human embryos, even if it is for the purpose of research or for any other manner, is also prohibited. Importing or exporting of human embryos or gametes is also prohibited. So, the Act has adequate provisions to ensure that the interest of the child born out of ART techniques will be protected. Similarly, the interest of the commissioning couple is also taken care. For the first offence, there will be a fine which shall not be less than 5 lakh rupees, but which may extend to 10 lakh rupees. But if the medical practitioner engages in a subsequent offence, there will be imprisonment which shall not be less than 3 years, but which may extend to 8 years, and with fine which shall not be less than 10 lakh rupees and which may extend to 20 lakh rupees. Provision for the protection of authorities and doctors for the actions done in good faith is also given in the Act. Similarly, power is bestowed on the central government to remove any difficulties faced during the implementation of the Act. According to the powers conferred under section 42, the central government has already made the rules which provide for 2 levels of ART clinics. Level 1 kind of ART clinics provides the preliminary investigation and intrauterine insemination service of ART technique. The level 2 clinics will provide advanced procedures like surgical retrieval of gametes, handling oocytes outside the body, use sperm for fertilization, and will undertake research. In a very recent judgment passed by the High Court of Kerala in Raki Bose versus Union of India, the court held that the primary objective of the Act is regulation and supervision of assisted reproductive technology clinics and banks by preventing misuse and ensuring safe and ethical practice of assisted reproductive technology services. The Act is not intended to create difficulties for persons opting for ART. This highlights the facilitative nature of the ART Act of 2021. It has adequate provisions to take care of the requirements of the commissioning couple and also the child which is born out of the use of ART techniques. To conclude, the Assisted Reproductive Technology Act of 2021 stands as a comprehensive legal framework aimed at regulating assisted reproductive technology procedures in India. The legislation has provisions which ensure ethical practices, safeguard the well-being of individuals involved in the process, prevent any type of misuse or discriminative practice such as sex selection. It aims to ensure safety, quality and effectiveness of these technologies while also protecting the rights of the children born through these means. The references of this lecture can be seen here. Thank you very much for listening to the lecture. I hope you are enjoying the course.